arrest against the then Muranga governor because he refused to appear before a certain committee. Unfortunately, we were frustrated by the IG, we are frustrated by the courts until that guy escaped that warrant of arrest. Mr. Speaker, if we let this go, today none of them appeared here. Next week, the same thing will happen again. Mr. Speaker, we must take a serious action today, not tomorrow. And again, Mr. Speaker, as per our standing orders, if the statements that we have currently are not responded to, that means it will lapse by the time we come back. Please, can you take serious action against these cabinet secretaries who are actually frustrating this house? And I know when they are called by National Assembly, they come running. But to the Senate, they see like this is a lesser house. We must show them that we are equal as far as responsibility is concerned. I thank you.
Senator Kenywa.
Asante Bwana Spika kunipa fursa hii. Kwanza kabisa Bwana Spika, hawa mawaziri inaonyeshana kana kwamba hawana heshima yoyote na seneti. Bwana Spika, hawa mawaziri walianza kwa kukejeli na kudhihaki kamati zetu Bwana Spika. Wakiitwa katika kamati hawakuji. Na hata hawasemi chochote Bwana Spika. Sasa wameona ya kwamba tayari wamehitimu Bwana Spika kutoka kwa kamati, sasa wanataka kukujaribu wewe kama spika wa seneti Bwana Spika. Wanangoja kwa hamu na gamu waone utafanya nini Bwana Spika. Usipofanya jambo leo Bwana Spika, seneti itakuwa imezama Bwana Spika. Lakini mimi nina imani ya kwamba wewe kama spika wetu Bwana Spika, najua utafanya jambo. Kwa sababu sisi tulikuja hapa, mimi nilikuja hapa asubuhi mapema, kisa na maana ndio niweze kuona waziri wa kawi Bwana Spika. Nimwambie ni mipango gani alionayo Bwana Spika, kwa sababu sehemu nyingi za Laikipia kwa sababu ya maji Bwana Spika hatuna stima Bwana Spika. Nilitaka kujua ni mipango gani alionayo Bwana Spika, lakini sababu ambazo tunapewa Bwana Spika si sababu ambazo zinatosha Bwana Spika. Hata iko waziri anakuambia asubuhi ya kwamba yeye alikuwa na mipango ingine maalum Bwana Spika. Na katiba ya Kenya inasema ya kwamba katika kipengele cha kwanza kinasema nguvu ni zina wananchi wa Kenya Bwana Spika. Na sisi ndio tunawakilisha wale wananchi wa Kenya. Bwana Spika, ninangoja kwa hamu nione maamuzi yako Bwana Spika. Katika kamati yetu nataka kumshukuru mwenyekiti Karungo Wadhangwa. Jana alifanya jambo Bwana Spika. Alifanya jambo na Wakenya wakaona amefanya jambo. Sasa Bwana Spika, Mswahili anasema kizaliwacho ni kizuri kushinda kinachokizaa. Bwana Spika, ninangoja. Nashukuru.
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to contribute to this important motion, in this important debate. Honorable Speaker, I think what we are discussing is not happening for the first time. Members have complained before about cabinet secretaries not responding in good time, not just for the plenary, but also for the committees. Mr. Speaker, I believe this is the time for us to make a determination as to whether the Senate is a house of parliament or a house of jokes. Mr. Speaker, it is, I think, the highest state of disrespect for cabinet secretaries to receive notification to appear in the Senate at least 14 days to the day they are coming, for them to send you a letter the morning that they are supposed to appear in the Senate. Mr. Speaker, that is the highest demonstration of disrespect for this House. It means they think senators don't have anything to do. Senators can just be on a notice of a few minutes. Their meetings can be called off. We need to send a message that that is not acceptable. We also need to send a message that their own boss, who actually wanted this session to happen, had something serious in mind when he actually proposed that we change standing orders to accommodate them. Mr. Speaker, I suggest that apart from them being summoned, the next appearance, the 3 cabinet secretaries should appear without fail, even if we have others, so that if necessary, that session should be extended in order for the meetings to be met. I also suggest that the prime cabinet secretary should also be additionally requested to confer with the other cabinet secretaries to convey the seriousness with which this House takes this session and for them to commit to appear to this. And I suggest, as DS says, the excuse by CS Treasury is not acceptable. Did he just interpret the questions this morning? He has had these questions for 3 weeks. I think they are joking with this House. Mr. Speaker, please crack the whip.
Senator Chuter.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I just wanted to know if the letter that went to the CS has got the clause of Standing Order 51C5. 51C5 reads, a cabinet secretary shall provide a physical and electronic copy of a response to a question at least 24 hours before appearing before the Senate. If you go to 51D, this is also very clear, Honorable Speaker. The Senate may, where a cabinet secretary fails without reasonable cause to appear and respond to questions under this part, move a motion to censure the cabinet secretary. Honorable Speaker, I don't know if the letter has got these standing orders written on them. Honorable Speaker, I was to travel to Marsabit yesterday. Because of the question that I posed to the minister in regards to public interest, in regards to the electricity issues some months back, that this was in darkness for almost 20 hours. And this question was very simple, Honorable Speaker. We have a problem. Is this problem going to repeat? What caused this problem? Who is going to pay that cost? Today, the cabinet secretary is not here to answer those questions, unfortunately. Honorable Speaker, I would also want to support what Senator Kathuria has said. A widow from Marsabit asked me, she lost her husband about 3 years ago, Jinia Guyo from Marsabit. And she asked me to go to NHIF to see if she can get the dues that's supposed to be payable to her. When I went to NHIF, I was referred back to Ministry of the Treasury. I was told the money is going to be paid from the Treasury. And today, the letter we received today is the Treasury CS is saying this is not his responsibility. It is the responsibility of the Ministry of Health. Honorable Speaker, I know very well, even Senator Kaduri knows very well, that he was also referred back to the Treasury. And he should come here and tell us what part he can be responsible of. And then the other part he can leave the Ministry of Health to deal with. Honorable Speaker, finally, I'd want to say, Honorable Speaker, please take some action. You remember when I brought the vegetable oil issue to this House, the CS Courier didn't want to come here. And yesterday you've seen in the papers, even today's paper, the lady in charge of KNTC was arrested because of the same issue, vegetable oil. This country have lost over 15 billion shillings, Mr. Speaker. When you see the CSS refusing to come here, there must be definitely something they are hiding. Please, Mr. Speaker, please, you are the father of this House. You are in charge of this House. You are in charge of this Senate. We look at you and see if you are going to take some action. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Kindly take some action. Sansan.
Senator Richard Onyok.
Mr. Speaker, I want to say thank you for allowing me to also talk about this issue. Mr. Speaker, it's very clear that the responsibilities of a senator, other than all the other issues we handle, is a matter of legislation. Mr. Speaker, the other issue that the Senate deals with is a matter of oversight. I've just come in this morning expecting the CS to be here. And I've just found he has not appeared. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I'm quite disappointed because Dr. Ndungu was my lecturer in the University of Nairobi in the class of economics. And he always used to say that you must be responsible and you always must be on time, because those are the qualities of good leadership. I'm quite surprised that he hasn't come. The question I was actually going to ask, or which I had asked on the order paper, Mr. Speaker, is about him telling me whether the government has a G-to-G agreement which was signed when the negotiations for the purchase of the oil was taking place. The cabinet secretaries must understand that the responsibility they hold and their job primarily, Mr. Speaker, is to serve this country. Even when they have been selected and nominated by the president to actually work on behalf of the president, they are actually answerable to Kenyans. And those questions that Kenyans are asking us are the ones we want the cabinet secretaries to come and give us answers. And that is how democracy that's how democracy is designed. Our democracy is designed, and again, I've just listened to one of my colleagues say that actually this is the issue of cabinet secretaries coming to this house to answer questions was something that President William Ruto personally engaged himself in. And particularly after the ruling, Mr. Speaker, it means that this is something that is now going to take place in this house, and this is a responsibility of the cabinet secretaries. I would really want, Mr. Speaker, for you to put your foot down. I would want our colleagues to realize that we are here not by accident, we are here by design, and let them know that we are going to hold them to account. The responsibility of this house is oversighting the national government and the county governments, and we take that responsibility very, very seriously. Mr. Speaker, I hope your ruling will be drastic, effective, and will achieve results as fast as we deserve them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also rise to make comments on this. Honorable Speaker, the President basically is the one who requested this House and even National Assembly to amend the standing order so that the CSs may come to this House and answer questions instead of the chairman of the committees or chairs of committees getting responses and coming to reply on the floor of the House. Honorable Speaker, it is deploring that this is not the first time. Even in the past, they have not been coming. And today we expected 3 CSs in this House to come and answer questions. I know most of them, when they're invited by National Assembly, they run there. But when they're invited by Senate, it's like they look for opportunities, they look for excuses so that they don't come to this House. Honorable Speaker, they cannot use COP28 as an excuse, because if the president himself is going to Dubai and the CS in charge of environment, I don't see the reason why the others are going there, and we are trying to have austerity measures to save money. Honorable Speaker, some of us were also invited. The climate change caucus of this House nominated some of us, but we could not go because there are no resources. How come most of all the CSs, more than 50%, want to go to Dubai for COP28 to waste resources? Honorable Speaker, you need to crack the whip, because these CSs will not take us serious if we just let it go the way they think that will excuse them. We need to find them. We need to censor them, Honorable Speaker. And we should not also allow the so-called CSs, Honorable Speaker, to come to the House, because the standing orders are very clear. The cabinet secretaries on the standing order, there is nothing like a CS. It is the cabinet secretaries who are supposed to come and answer in the House. Yes. So, Honorable Speaker, be firm and crack the whip, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as my colleague Chair Transport had said earlier, about some governors who were senators in this House, the governor for Nakuru, the governor for Nairobi, the governor for Kiambu. They're also very notorious. When they're invited to committees, they don't come. So we need also to ask the chairs, crack the whip, find them and censor them. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Eddy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today in the morning, I resumed my session, football session, in preparation for, Yala games that are coming in just about a week. And Mr. Speaker, as you know, we don't have any field to be able to train. So we keep on moving from one place to another. And today in the morning, I was training around Magadi Road. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I had to really rush to get here. Through your honor, may you just give me an opportunity to actually welcome the team from Migori. I'm very proud of these members of the delegated duties in the county assembly. And I hope that I'll get time to talk with them in our own tradition in Parliament here. But Mr. Speaker, in the spirit of rushing to get to this house, I also noticed that we actually are having a second week since the court did pronounce itself on the tussle that was between the minority side and the majority side on the issue of whether it was right constitutionally for the cabinet secretaries to be able to appear in this house. And indeed, the court did rule that it is actually okay, to the extent that now you can see the members of the minority side coming. But I do notice that since the ruling, this is the second Wednesday that the members of minority have been coming. And those two consecutive sessions, the members of the cabinet have been behaving in a very funny way. They don't appear. Mr. Speaker, if you go unanswered, you read that even while the matter was in court, I was always able to come to the house and just listen to what is going on. And I used to notice that the members of the cabinet secretaries used to come religiously and attend their meetings here. I'm beginning to think that perhaps it used to be a tete-a-tete between colleagues from the Kenya Kwanza side. It was just a dialogue, that there was no interrogation, there was no nuance perhaps in terms of engaging the county, the cabinet secretaries. But now that the opposition is here to interrogate, to scrutinize, to be able to actually ask the right questions, they are running from the house, Mr. Speaker. And this is the problem that we had seen. And actually, this also indicts the so-called prime cabinet secretary. Because, Mr. Speaker, the work of the prime cabinet secretary is actually to be able, I'm saying so-called because it's not in the constitution, but it was created anyway. We disputed it as members of the minority side. But now that is there, Article 153 of the Constitution on decisions, responsibilities, and accountability of the cabinet lies squarely with the prime cabinet secretary, because his duty is to be able to supervise and ensure that the members of the cabinet can actually come to this house and answer questions and be held to account. So it is an indictment and a big failure on Honorable Musalia Mudavadi. And before we deal with these individual cabinet secretaries, Mr. Speaker, there has to be a letter from your desk, perhaps directly to the prime cabinet secretary, that is doing very poorly and is embarrassing the entire cabinet because his members are not showing to this house. But more specifically, Mr. Speaker, as I finish, I think that I have seen in other committees that I've been in, whereby if we invite different officials in government and they don't show up, we actually very religious also in terms of actually punishing. We punish by summon because we are mandated to do so. We punish by fines because we're mandated to do so. Mr. Speaker, the censorship that I'm expecting under standing order number 51D is a censorship that goes with punishing these cabinet secretaries with fines. And Mr. Speaker, I hope that these fines can not only be for the House, but also somebody like Senator Kinyua and Senator Chute. On that fine, Mr. Speaker, if you can be, courteous enough, you can be able to make sure that Senator Kinyua gets his 500,000, Senator Chute gets his 500,000, Senator Senator Gloria gets his 500,000, majority leader gets his 1 million, so that they know that this house is a very serious house, that people must learn to respect our time, because that time is extremely valuable. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I support I support the censorship from your desk to these cabinet secretaries. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, honorable senators, I have taken time to allow a number of us to ventilate on this particular matter. Indeed, it is very serious. Now, if you look at the 3 letters that are referred to this morning, none of them contain a reason that is an emergency. Meaning, all the 3 CSs, they knew that they were not going to appear before the Senate many days ago. Courtesy demands that they ought to have communicated to the Senate so that when we were sitting in SBC, we could have then dropped their questions because under their request and picked other CSs for purposes of responding to their questions today. Now, honorable senators, we have over 60 questions in the queue. We could not pick other questions because we were convinced yesterday when we sat in SBC, in fact, not yesterday, last week, we were convinced because there was no communication to the contrary that the CSS will appear before this House for purposes of responding to these questions. Indeed, receiving this communication this morning is the epitome of discourteous. Now, honorable senators, this House is not a house of lamentations. It is a house of actions. But our action must rest either on the Constitution, statutory law, or our standing orders. Many of you standing to contribute to this particular point of order invited me to be firm on the CSs. I have come through the Constitution, statutory law, and a standing order to see where the Speaker can be able to punish these CSs. If I had any powers to punish these CSs, honorable senators, that day would be now, not tomorrow, as you had invited me. Now, honorable senators, I will invite you to our standing orders, more particularly Standing Order 51D. 51D. Now, the punishment that our CS invites for non-attendance for purposes of responding to this question is contained in our standing order, more particularly Standing Order 51D, a motion of censure. Now, honorable senators, the Speaker of this House cannot file a motion. I can only moderate debate, facilitate debate, to make sure you do the right thing. If indeed, honorable senators, you're persuaded that the behavior of these CSS is unbecoming, invoke Standing Order 51D. As your Speaker, I'll be here to moderate that motion. In that motion, you may resolve any punishment. You can pass a resolution that this CSS be fined to the extent of whatever amount of money this House will resolve. How I wish I have the powers to punish these CSS. I will do it today. So, honorable senators, Please, please, do not allow this House to be disobeyed. Kindly invoke Standing Order 51D, and as a speaker, I'll be here to moderate that debate. But this behavior cannot be left unpunished. I hope in the coming days on my desk, I'll see a motion. I will not hesitate to approve that motion of censure. So, honorable senators, do the right thing. Thank you. Honorable Clerk, next order, please. Now, honorable senators, if you look at today's order paper, order 8, order 9, order 10, order 11, order 12, order 13 through to order 14. Those are orders that are supposed to proceed to the committee of the whole. Clearly, we do not have the numbers to prosecute those orders. And therefore, we will defer those orders and will proceed to order number 15. That is the motion on the Shakahola report. I will therefore invite the clerk to read that order so that debate then resumes on that particular motion. Honorable Clerk.
Order number 15, motion. Report of the ad hoc committee to investigate the proliferation of religious organizations and circumstances leading to more than 95 deaths in Shakahola, Kilifi County. Resumption of debate.
Now, honorable senators, at the interruption of debate on this particular matter, that was on Tuesday, the 28th of November, 2023, the Honorable Boni had the floor and he had a balance of 19 minutes. I will therefore invite the honorable senator to proceed to make his contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just started before it was time up for the adjournment of the House. And I'd acknowledged the good work that has been done by this committee, led by the distinguished Senator of Tana River, Senator Mungatana. And because he moved the motion very clearly, using very articulative means, I don't want to belabor, but I just want to appreciate some of the salient points that I've found in this committee's report. Mr. Speaker, the committee has been humble enough to realize the complexity of the work at hand and come out with 1 to 9 action points, which it has recommended to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations and the DPP to take up, let it undergo the due process so that this criminality should be brought to an end. I allowed them, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Further to this, I want to appreciate the committee because they have asked the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration to shut down the physical premises of Good News International Premises and Good News Media House. Plus, of course, there are affiliates that are operating within the Republic of Kenya within 30 days after this Senate adopts this report. Mr. Speaker, it is very important because Kenyans know, and they have seen the footage, where even while this criminal is in court, whenever he makes appearances in court, we still have some people who are foolish enough to celebrate him. So the answer is for the place to be closed down physically. Mr. Speaker, I want to laud the committee that they have asked the Directorate of Criminal Investigations and the Director of Public Prosecutions to initiate the process of freezing the assets belonging to Paul Mackenzie and any other associates, and the proceeds be used to compensate the families of the deceased victims. Mr. Speaker, this is very reflective. Paul Mackenzie, like many such misguided so-called prophets and preachers, they use the pretext of the people's vulnerability to have a better life after death. They convert them into paupers, and in the process, they enrich themselves. It is not surprising, therefore, Mr. Speaker, that the country is abound of preachers who drive fuel gasless. Some even have helicopters just to show how good they are at looting the public. Mr. Speaker, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Administration must declare the Good News International Ministries and Good News Media House Limited as organized criminal gangs. These are criminal gangs, and I am very, very personally offended by the lack of cooperation on the part of Professor Kindiki when this committee wanted him to help the committee to have witnesses appear before them. Mr. Speaker, it was unfortunate that the professor of law said he was going to speak for the witnesses. Since when? Since when did a minister speak for a criminal? Since when did a minister have privileged information that he could give to a serious committee like this one? I want to appeal to my younger brother, Professor Kindiki. Humble yourself. You should have allowed Kenyans who wanted to give evidence to do so. What are you protecting, Professor? If the DCI, the NIS, was able to appear before the committee, and where they thought certain pieces of evidence required secrecy, they applied for being heard in camera. Our professor has been a deputy speaker in this house. Our professor has been leader of the majority in this house. He knows these privileges. Or was he deliberately trying to frustrate the committee of the Parliament of the Republic of Kenya? Your Excellency, President William Samoei Ruto, we are going to help you to get rid of non-functional ministers who are for anything else as good as dead wood. Mr. Speaker, why would a minister make it difficult for a committee of Parliament to deliver? Oh, when I think about the grief in Kakamega, in the villages of Mumias, in the villages of Ikolmani, in the villages of Shinyalu, in the villages of our community, when we learned that our teachers, some of our teachers had died in Shakahola, I have no kind words for anybody who shielded the exposure of these criminals. Mr. Speaker, in this elaborate report, which I'm glad that now all members are acquainted with, the committee is asking the National Police Service Commission to severely sanction security officers whose acts of commission and omission aided or abetted the Shakahola tragedy 30 days from now. Mr. Speaker, so that it remains evidently clear to the Republic of Kenya that civil servants, senior security officers, they drink and dine on the blood of the poor. The committee has been very specific. It has said on page 135, Mr. Speaker, that Mr. Joseph Kemboi, the senior superintendent of police in charge of the sub-county police commander in Malindi, should be disciplined. Charles Kamau Wangu, the assistant superintendent of police, the criminal investigation officer in Malindi, should be disciplined, as should Simon Odera, superintendent of police, sub-county police commander, as should Mr. Guracha, the superintendent of police, critical infrastructure protection unit in Malindi, as should Augusto Akuna, officer commanding police station in Malindi, as should Hassan Hamara, officer commanding police station Langobaya, and Calvin Maloa Otieno, the DCI of Malindi, Daniel Mudusi Muleli, the county criminal investigation officer, Jacinda Wesonga, county police commander, Paul Maweu, critical infrastructure protection unit officer, and Joseph Yator, police officer attached to Directorate of Criminal Investigations. They should be disciplined. Mr. Speaker, why I'm reading out these names in this August House is so that members of the public in Shakahola, in Malindi, in Kilifi, in Coast, everywhere in Kenya, should not obey any instruction from any of these officers, should the usual nonsense of government of transferring police officers who are supposed to be sacked be the practice in this case. I can assure any of them, if they appear in Kakamega on transfer, I will request politely the bullfighters of Khaega to resist.
Honorable Boni, are you calling for civil disobedience in Kakamega? Kindly withdraw that statement and proceed with your very good contribution.
Mr. Speaker, I am so directed, and I do. But let it be understood that in our community, we say, he who is mourning knows no shame. This is in this debate I'm mourning. I have been to those homes. In fact, in some of the homes, Mr. Speaker, we have already buried wet banana stems. In our culture, you bury a wet banana stem when you have lost out all the possibility of ever bringing your beloved one to be buried home. Because having stayed in Kilifi, our families have been there for months on end. And it is either DNA or what cannot be found, and therefore they are unable to know who amongst all these bodies is indeed their own beloved one. So they have buried bananas. I therefore withdraw that remark and appeal to the security organs to ensure that disciplinary action is taken against these criminals who are in uniform. The committee recommends also at 448 that Parliament enacts the proposed Religious Organization Bill 2023 to provide legislative framework for the regulation of religious organizations and establishment of Office of the Registrar of Religious Organization, registration framework, qualification of religious leaders, offenses and penalties for non-compliance. Mr. Speaker, if I had the power, and I don't have, I would convert Senator Mungatana's committee into a special committee to work on this bill. This bill must be available. The tragedy that is Shakahola has now given us the opportunity, the reason, the courage, the excuse for us to face our religious leaders and tell them, you are going to be regulated. Religious organizations must be regulated. Why do we have the Bible? Why do we have the 10 Commandments? Why do we have the teachings of the disciples of Jesus Christ? Why do we have the teachings of Prophet Muhammad in the Quran? Those teachings are meant to set standard so as to regulate. So regulation is already provided for in the Bible, it is provided for in the Holy Quran, is provided for even in the Constitution. We must regulate churches. There are far too many. Let me tell you, from Shikalagala Junction to Marinya, on the way, on the road from Shikalagala to Butere.
Senator Boni Karwale, what is your point of order?
Yes.
Senator Okech.
Mr. Speaker, you know, I wouldn't at all want to, and I'm raising understanding order number 105 on statement of fact. I wouldn't at all want to, you know, interrupt the cadence with which the majority whip is already presenting, and these are very passionate issues that I know that we worked on very, very well. But I want just to say that, you know, the chapter and the report that he has just read is not on the regulation of churches, is on the regulation of religious organizations, which is inclusive of churches. I want to stress this because one of the eminent challenges we faced, Mr. Speaker,